In this episode, we're talking all about fabric marking tools. Welcome to the Sewing Report. I'm Jen. This channel is all about making sewing fun and approachable. This video is probably long overdue, but I want to talk about my small but handy collection of fabric marking tools. And a big thank you to today's sponsor, SewTites, the creator of magnetic sewing pins and handy notions. I've been using and loving SewTites products for years, and am very proud to have them as a Sewing Report partner. SewTites offer a way to pin when you can't. These are available in the Sewing Report Etsy shop, and I'm really excited to now offer SewTites light bars. These are designed for people who struggle with hand strength like myself. With lower strength magnets, they are easier to slide apart and come in a cheerful yellow color. Be sure to check out and subscribe to the SewTites YouTube channel with a mission of empowering you to live magnetically. Now, I use these for many different types of projects, whether it be tracing a pattern piece onto fabric or even marking darts, notches, placement lines. So I'm here and I've got my collection plus a few fabric samples, so I'll be going over each one and talking a little bit about how I use it. And a quick disclaimer, I do sell most of these items in the Sewing Report Etsy shop, and there are some affiliate links down below. First up, we have the Sewline Styla Water Erasable Roller Ball Marking Pen in blue. It has a ceramic 0.8mm roller ball tip, and it is precision polished to roll smoothly. So the thing I like about this one, and I do have duplicates of this, one of them is like a few years old, and then the other one is brand new right out of the package. It glides so smoothly over fabric, so this one would be good for fabrics that, you know, when you are trying to mark up a fabric and it tends to the tip tends to snag on it. This is the tool for those types of fabric. This obviously might not work if you're doing like a dark colored fabric, so I'll show you. This is a rayon print, and I'll do the back so you'll actually be able to see it, but this is a pretty slinky fabric. So this one, if you're using other types of fabrics, it might kind of snag, but look at this. It's just rolling very nicely. It's sort of a bright blue ink, and this is water soluble. So to demonstrate erasing the marks, I have this Sewline water pen. I forgot where I even picked this up, but I've had it for a while. You don't need this. It's just literally like a felt tip pen with water in it. You could use a Q-tip with water. You don't need this, but it's sort of dripping here, but all you do is run this over the marks and then it will disappear. So this is good. And again, the tip is fairly fine. So if you need a lot of precision, this marker is really good for that. Another thing I like about this one is, say you're marking like quilting lines or something that you're going to be working on over a couple days or a couple of weeks, the mark won't disappear unless you put water to it. So I do have some air soluble markers as well, and those tend to fade over time. So the thing I like about this Sewline water erasable blue pen is that the marks will stay until you dab it with a little water. See, this one you can already see it's pretty much gone, but let me show you with another marking pen, and you'll kind of see this is another Clover one that I'll get to in a little bit, but this one's not too bad. But some marking pens, if you're working with really slinky fabric, they can kind of snag the fabric as you're trying to mark it up. While this is one of the newest items in the Etsy shop, I've been personally using this as a customer for a few years, and the ink is still flowing. So some of them, they do tend to dry out and you have to replace them every once in a while. But this one I haven't had to replace. And again, I just opened a new one. I can't even tell which is which. This one lasts a long time. I like that it has a very easy to remove cap with a little clip on it. So I do really like this one. The next one is the Clover Air Erasable Marker. This one is purple. Now Clover does make this in a few different widths. Like there's a thin one, there's like an extra fine point. This one's a thick pen. I do really like this for different applications. I use this a lot in quilting, or if I'm doing tracing pattern pieces for like little projects. The ink is really easy to see on a lot of fabrics. I do like this a lot. Here, I'll kind of demonstrate. One of these is newer and one of these is older. The downside with this one, it does tend to be one of the fastest to dry out, especially if you're using it heavily. If I'm using it, okay, I think this is the older one. Let's see here. Yeah, I think this is the newer one. When it's fresh, it has like a very bold very easy to see line. As you tend to use it, the mark will get more and more faint and it'll fade away a little quicker. So you do have to replace these somewhat often, but I do really like it because the mark shows up well. I kind of like the fact that it's thick. I personally find it easy to see. I like to mark quilting lines with this pen quite a bit. I also will use this for embroidery projects. I'll use it if I'm floating something in the hoop. I'll use this to mark up my horizontal and center lines. So I do use this one. I do kind of reach for it quite a bit. It does have a cap that goes on the end. A gripe I have is that it doesn't tend to stay well. It tends to fall off a little bit easier. This is water or air soluble. So if you just leave it, the marks will fade away in a few days, or you can erase it with water. Here, I'll show you right here. So you can do either one. I'll show you on a different fabric here. I'm still not sure which one is the new one and which one is the old one. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I feel like both of these are a few months old, but when they're really fresh, you can tell, and the line is a little bit bolder. This is good for solid, lighter fabrics, light to medium fabrics, or prints that aren't too dark or too dense. Otherwise, it can be a little bit tricky to see. But yeah, I like how bold this is. It's more of a marker than a pen. You can also tell which ones I use the most because I have duplicates of the purple Clover and the blue Sewline. So these I do tend to use quite a bit. So here, let me show you on some other fabric. But yeah, good all-purpose pen. You can see it doesn't tend to work super great on dark fabrics, but that's why I have multiple options here. But this is a nice marking pen, kind of a general all around. So you can see it pretty well except for the dark blue parts. Sometimes if I'm marking a pattern piece, you see on this fabric there's light parts and then there's darker parts. I will use maybe two different marking pens, one for dark fabrics and one for lighter fabrics, just to be able to see it. This is where marking pens meant for dark fabrics come into play here. This is the Clover white water soluble or iron off marking pen for dark fabrics. This one is convenient for marking and copying detailed designs for applique, embroidery, handicrafts, sewing, and quilting. Marks can be easily removed with water or, as I found out, the iron, and it is good for dark fabric. So here's the thing I found out about this one is at first the ink will appear sort of like clearish, cloudy, and then it will, as it dries, it will start to show up a little bit more. So you may have to go over this a little bit to really be able to see the marks. So here, I'll show you. This one also has a cap with a little clip. The Clover pens, I do find the caps are a little bit flimsy. Again, not a huge deal, but just something to keep in mind. So you can see it sort of faded away, and then as it dries, it like shows back up. It's really strange like that. And you can see if you go over it a few times, then the mark is really visible. So this is a pen option for darker fabrics. I also have a pencil option. This is the Sewline Tailor's Click Pencil for fabric marking. It has a 1.3 millimeter tip. Now on the package it says this is lead. It's actually not. Apparently it's ceramic, which also means that it doesn't have any like messy or powdery residue on the marks, and you can easily remove the marking with water. Something to keep in mind is that this one is not refillable, but it's a fairly inexpensive marking pen. It's like $3, so it doesn't really break the bank. Here, I'll show you the pencil. So you can see this line isn't quite as bold as the Clover pen. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. This does sort of snag because it's a pencil. So you can decide on a project by project basis if you want to use a marking pen or a marking pencil. So let's try to remove these. All right, let's get the water here. Yeah, this is quite a bit of water. I think I remember testing this out and it did remove pretty easily with just simple water. This one, the pen, I think it works pretty well if I use, no, this will remove also with just putting the iron over it. Here, I'll show you. But the water seems to be removing it too. So you have a few different options for how you want to remove the marks. I know some sewists will use just a regular writing pencil or pen. I personally don't do that in most situations. I would just rather use tools that are specifically meant for marking fabric and can be removed if I need them to be removed. So that's just what I prefer. But you do you. If you just like using a regular old pencil or pen, you can. Obviously, if you need to remove the marks, like if you're marking like a placement line that will be seen later, that might not work. But if you're marking things within the seam allowance or on like a cut line, that's should be okay, unless maybe the ink would maybe bleed onto other parts of the fabric. I don't know. But I just personally like using specific fabric marking tools. That's just what I would prefer to do. All right, I've got the hot iron on standby. Let's use it to remove the Clover marks. Yeah, so you can do either one. You can do water or you can do a hot iron. Pretty much removed it. I feel like the water did a little bit better of a job, but I guess if you do a combination of both, you can still sort of see the marks here. All right, so let's try both of these. But water will definitely work. Next up is the Clover Chacopen Pink Air Erasable Dual Tip Pen with Eraser. Now this one is double-sided. It's got the pen on one side and it has the eraser on the other side. This one is fairly similar to the Clover Purple Air Erasable marker. The only difference is this one has a slightly finer tip, obviously different color. This one is dark pink. It's got the eraser on the other side. Surprisingly, this one is a little bit less expensive, so that's cool. And this one is both air and water soluble, so you can do both. It kind of depends on how thick you need your lines to be and also just what color. So maybe this one would show up better on a certain fabric. So that's kind of how I choose, is which marking pen shows up the best on that fabric. Like for this one that's sort of a blue fabric, I might use this because it stands out more. On this one I might use the purple because, yeah, you can see on the peach fabric, this one doesn't stand out as much. So as a sewist, I just prefer to use the marking pen that shows up the best on the fabric. So it could be colors, it could be whether it's light or dark, what kind of pattern it is. But you can see certain pens just show up. See, this shows up much better on the peach fabric. And I feel like the pink pen shows up better on this sort of blue fabric. And this one actually has its own eraser. So you can use this in a number of different ways. You can use this, I imagine this would probably work on other, yeah, this pretty much works on any other water-soluble pen. Or if you just let this sit for a few days, the mark will start to disappear on its own. So I do like this one. This is a little bit newer to the shop. I think I've had it for a while, but this is one of the, I think I had the purple one was one of the first ones. And then I added the pink one and then the white one for the dark fabrics. But I do really like this pen. Again, it's kind of like maybe whatever mood I'm in and whatever fabric I'm using. That's pretty much how I decide on what pen I'm using that day. This last one is quite popular among the quilting community, but I wanted to talk about it because I'm just not really a fan, and I want to point out why. This is the Clover Hera marker. It's an easy to handle tracing spatula, allowing you to place pressure when marking on fabric, and it makes a crease in the fabric. It's not really a marking pen, but you'll use it on a project and the crease should be visible. But here is my gripe with it, and I'll show you. So I have this little sample of quilting fabric that is on a backing of Annie's, by Annie's Soft and Stable stabilizer here. So I'll show you how this works. And also you can use this as a point turner, so it is a little handy tool. I've just never gotten into really using it. So say I wanted to mark some quilting lines, I would just mark on the fabric. Here, I'll kind of show you. So you can see it does make a crease in the fabric. So all you would do is you would mark where you want to sew, or, you know, whatever you need to see. Like I would normally, if I was going to be using this, I would be marking quilt lines. So you can see the crease here. So here is my gripe with the Clover hair marker. Maybe an unpopular opinion, I don't know. I just personally find that I cannot see the creases well enough at the sewing machine. I just have a really hard time seeing them, and I just can't, guys. So I don't really use this tool. I think I got this for free in one of those like quilting of the month boxes or something like that. I just can't really make out the crease line well enough to confidently follow it at the sewing machine. The other thing I noticed is that once I put a crease in the fabric using the hair marker, it doesn't press out. The crease is like permanent. So even using like a steam iron or like putting water on it and then a hot iron, I personally had some issues with it because I found that the crease just doesn't come out. So for me, that's a problem. Plus, it doesn't really help me because I can't really see the marking very well. yeah, the crease never really goes away, and I can't see it well enough to be able to use it as like a stitch line. So, you know, maybe you like yours. I'm just not really into it. You know, hey, different strokes for different folks, that whole thing. But that's why I personally don't really use or recommend the Clover Hera marker. I think there are plenty of other great Clover products and great Sewline products and marking tools. This just isn't it for me. So I did want to talk about it because I've seen it recommended a lot. I just find that it doesn't really work for me. So that's why I don't really use it. I do also want to show a demonstration of what I'm doing if I'm working with fabric that has a print that has darker and lighter fabrics, making it kind of tricky. So like say I need to trace like a circle or something, right? So I might use, let's say, the purple marker here, because that would show up relatively well on the cream base. So you can see when I'm going around this is more of an oval, but hey, whatever. You can see there are parts where you really just can't see what's going on here. So what I'll normally do is I'll trace it out using one pen, and then I will mark over the places I can't really see my marks with my white pen meant for dark fabrics. So I'll do that. I might go over this see, you can see I can sort of see the line well enough. So on those areas, see, I'll use the pen for the white fabric, and then I will mark over this section here. So hopefully this will give me a more visible line. And again, I only need to do this on the sections that are dark. And yeah, you may have to do this, go over this a few times, and you'll be able to see it. It's a little bit faint, even so, but you can definitely see it a little bit better than the purple marker, because purple on dark blue just isn't really gonna show up very well. So you can see I'll use the rayon print that's pretty dark. Now you can see this line a lot better than the purple one. See, this one doesn't even really show up, and then the white one you can see well. So this is why I have so many different marking pens for different situations. So I kind of just wanted to walk you through the thought process. Hopefully this helps you, especially if you're a newer sewist and you don't really know what's going on. All of these products are linked down below in the description box, but let me know down in the comments what are your favorite marking tools for fabric, and share a few tips for some of the newcomers to the sewing community. I'm sure they would all appreciate that. Anyways, I'm Jen with the Sewing Report. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos just like this. I'm Jen with the Sewing Report. I'll see you again in the next one, and remember, whatever you're doing, make it fun.